Hello and welcome. This is Alchemist X, and I'm going to be talking about Star Rail for a little bit. It's been a little while since I made a video on it, mostly just because for a while I didn't really think there was anything I needed to talk about. The game was proceeding in a very kind of linear way, and then a bunch of voice actor drama happened, and that made me just not really want to talk about the game because there was a character I really liked that was Argenti, and then he had and he was also the same voice as Tail for whoever. Then they both, Tail and Huehue voice actors were replaced, and nobody really knows why, whether it's strike related or just contract related in some other way. Probably had an NDA involved, so I don't think we'll ever know. And no shade on the current voice actors, they're doing their jobs. It's just Argenti was one who was extra special. Like from the moment I saw the first trailer, I was like, this character is awesome, and then he's really fun to play as. I really liked his voice lines in combat. So that is a shame, and that definitely put me off for a little bit. But I'm at the point where I'm not as worried about that anymore. I'm already using Argenti again, and there's just not anything I can really do to change that situation. So I don't want to dwell on it any longer, and I just want to enjoy the game. And I definitely have been enjoying the game recently, especially once Jade came out. Jade is not a character I would have thought that I really wanted until I learned that her skill drains HP from a character, and that ended up being perfect for Blade. The speed bonus is also huge. Basically, this party that I'm using right here, I really enjoy. It's fun for a couple of reasons. One, because I don't have any other teams that want any of these characters in general, like barring something like a Crimson Calc situation where all I'm really trying to do is match element types, and then Blade is the best option for a wind element. That could be the case, but in general, for more serious content, whether that's Memory of Chaos, Pure Fiction, Apocalyptic Shadow, in those contexts, or even Echoes of War, nobody else wants these characters. So that means I'm free to use them, and whatever the second team is, regardless of that context, I'm not constrained, and I really enjoy that. I also just really enjoy how well they work together. It's basically a hyper carry with Blade, although Jade's personal damage, depending on the number of enemies, is okay, but she's really not there for damage. She is functionally a Harmony unit in the context of this team, and I really enjoy that. It's just the combination of making his follow-up proc sooner and then also speed tuning him for Bronya works really well. I'm really glad that I have Bronya now, because even though it felt like not that long after I got her, Sparkle came out, and then in most cases, Sparkle is going to be preferable because a lot more teams have skill point requirements, and especially if you look at Sparkle as being very tailor-made for Imbibitor or Lunae, then in that case, it's just miles and miles better. But in this case, because nobody here is that worried about skill points, we got, like, Blade is almost zero. It's technically negative, but it is very close to zero. Loach is positive. Jade is positive, and then Sparkle might be negative, but that's nullified by one of the other positives. So in general, and then I also do have Bronya's signature. I got it from the standard banner a long time ago, so an extra skill point will come from there occasionally. And then just full disclosure, I also have Blade's signature, which is part of the reason why I just hyper invest in him, just because I've got access to his full kit, and I ended up having what ended up being a good support for him. So I decided to go for it. I really enjoy his playstyle. It's pretty much just this. It takes full advantage of Locha too. So I really enjoy this set of characters, even if none of them are particularly meta. Okay, so I'm going to complain a tiny bit and then mostly talk about the endgame modes and my overall thoughts on them. So my main complaint is that characters come out too fast. There's too many of them, and it's pushing the game faster than I would like. Luckily, it looks like that's going to start slowing down. Next patch only has one new character. I hope that is a more regular thing, just to give us some room to breathe. And then not just from a gem standpoint, but also just from a general resources standpoint. It costs a lot of resources in general to raise characters, so having to do it more often is it's important to do it on a somewhat regular basis, but it's not very fun if you have a bunch of characters you really want to use, but you're constrained on resources. So a little bit of breathing room is very much appreciated. Okay, don't want to spend this whole video complaining, so I want to talk about the endgame modes and how I look at them. So I look at the endgame modes, at least the highest levels of them, as purely optional. When I look at the rewards that you get for them, you get a little bit of gems. Not enough gems to justify spending gems to be able to do it better. That doesn't make any sense. There's another really important resource, the thing that you can use to buy self-modeling resin, which then you can make yourself an artifact with the main stat that you want. Really, really good for orbs, really, really good for crit stat body pieces, etc. So that's a very, very important item. I think it's 100% worth engaging in the endgame modes to, one, get the battle pass XP, because that's really easy to do. If you've got characters that are max level and you've got traces and you've got relics, it's not a particularly challenging thing to do. And then when I look at the other rewards you can get, it's worth engaging with somewhat, but you don't need to go all the way, because there ends up being a point where the rewards that they give you are just not worth the effort that it takes to be able to do them, potentially, unless you just happen to have the right setup and you can take advantage of that. But usually at that stage, the function of them is some degree of an advertisement for the current banner characters. It's not always like super intense, and in some cases it doesn't matter because there are substitutions, but that's how I look at that. I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. If it was so extreme that the only way to complete it was that way, that would be very, very bad. But being a low-key advertisement for the new characters in an environment where people who want to spend a lot can basically show off, I think that's a good thing to have, on the condition that that kind of mode is tangential to the main gameplay experience. Like, I would never want to see that much advertising basically in terms of the main gameplay experience. You'll see a little bit of that in Echoes of War, but it's nothing too crazy. If I can beat Fexiao with Blade, Locha, Bronya, and Jade, I think that it's fine. But having basically the two things is having the rewards be more intrinsic than extrinsic, and then having it not be part of the main gameplay experience. Like, this also applies to Spiral Abyss in Genshin, or Tagatame doesn't really have anything like that, because I don't think Tagatame has nearly as much gating when it comes to that. But Sword of Convallaria has its own tower, kind of the same thing, although most people use low rarity units for that, at least the current state that the game is in. That could change as people start to get max level accounts. But yeah, that's my overall thought. Like, I don't think that it's entirely fair to say that not being able to do the higher levels of Memory of Chaos, Pure Fiction, Apocalyptic Shadow, etc. makes the game pay to win. One, because there are instances of people that do just fine in non-pay to win accounts. And then two, it's a hard thing to say, but you need to have some degree of pay to win in a game like this. You know, don't get me wrong. I don't mean to say that a game literally needs to be pay to win. But if we're looking at a game as a spectrum, right? And one end of the spectrum is 100% free to play friendly, and then the other end of the spectrum is 100% pay to win. Both of those things are going to be bad. The pay to win, obviously, that's self-explanatory. But if a game is 100% free to play friendly, that's not good for the game, because if there's no incentive to spend, then I don't think the game is going to do very well. I've heard that being the case in other games. I don't think I've ever played a game where that really applies. But it's hard to earn revenue if there's no incentive for it. So it's a weird thing to think about, but you definitely don't want that to be the case. So what needs to happen is the producers of the game need to strike a balance where, yeah, there's some incentive, like being able to just buy damage so you can brain dead auto something. I think that's perfectly valid, for the people that, they were going to do that anyway. This is something I'm going to talk about in my next video about Sword of Convallaria, because I think there's a good case to contrast Star Rail and Convallaria in how they approach that. I think Star Rail does a better job. But it is definitely important to have something that gives the people who spend an amount of money that most of us would call completely insane a reason to basically validate that experience. And I think that endgame modes that, presumably, I don't know if everybody who is like an E6 S5 type of person, I don't know if they're always autoing it or not, but to make autoing it even possible in the first place by just sheer outstatting, that is the kind of territory that you're in at that point. And like that kind of thing is not for me. I enjoy the manual experience more, and I'm always weighing my options when it comes to, is this worth the time? Like, what rewards is it going to give me? Because for me, there's always alternatives, right? Like, I still need to finish beating the main story in Tagatame. I'm only on my second run on Spiral of Destinies for Sword of Convallaria, and there's still Fool's Journey chapters that I need to do. Not to mention Genshin. I'm getting caught up on some world quests in that. And I haven't even played Final Fantasy XIV in a little while, so I have absolutely no shortage of alternatives to do with my time. So that's one of the questions that I'm always going to be asking. In general, I think that in that sense, Star Rail is just doing fine, and it's more the pacing of the characters and the kits and the power scaling overall that is the issue, not the endgame modes themselves. It's more of a symptom rather than being the cause. Nonetheless, I had a lot of fun with this Apocalyptic Shadow. I enjoy the Aventurine boss fight quite a bit. He definitely looks like he could have been somebody's persona in like Persona 5. I would not mind having a persona that looked like that. That'd be cool. But I think this is a good place to end the video. So yeah, that's all I really got to say about Star Rail. I'm not going anywhere with this game. I might have my complaints, but I just enjoy almost everything about this game too much to really consider quitting. It's that charge turn battle system. I just love it so much. Like, whether or not there's terrain aspect or not, like with Sword of Convallaria and Tagatame, etc. So yeah, it might not be the next video that I make, because the next video I make will probably be for the Tagatame reset, but I want to talk about Sword of Convallaria and revisit some of these topics that I've been talking about and how it relates to that game. So yeah, if you are summoning, I wish you good luck, and I will see you all next time.